But my name is Mark Bonas, and I am from an organization that's been around for 98 years called Visions Services for the Blind and Visually Impaired. We've been around for 98 years. And if there is kind of like two things to really, if you forget everything that I say today, remember two things. Really three. Okay. One is that we are free. Two is that we help people who have lost a lot of their vision adjust to that new reality. And three is that all of our programs and services were free. So that sounds like one. Because it is one, yes. We are free. There is no cost to anybody who would ever use our services. And usually when I come and give a talk to wonderful folks, there are a couple of things. Number one, it's almost all women. And then they always, they say, why do women live longer? I mean, because, women, from what I've gathered, not all women, but many folks actually take in information and they make adjustments. There are things that they didn't know. They learn about it and make adjustments. Sometimes a lot of gentlemen that I know, are still trying to live maybe a 20-year-old life or something. Maybe we're not 20 years old anymore. So you got to take in the information. So what I also find is that there are people who often the people who are most in touch of maintaining their health in a positive way often are not here. Or the people who need the help are often not here. The people who are maintaining their health come and they need the services less. And so what I would also ask everyone here to be is kind of an ambassador to folks who are in our churches or synagogues or mosques, the people who live in our buildings, the people who are our family and friends who may not be here, may be suffering some severe visual impairment and can use the service, but are never going to come here. You all are ambassadors to bring that information to them. And I will say that because one of the reasons why I'm here is because in my own family, we lived in Brooklyn at the time. Anybody heard of Brooklyn? Maybe a couple of people have heard of Brooklyn. And she lost a lot of her vision. Visions and other organizations were around to help her. We didn't know that they existed. So many things I realized when I came to the organization were really taken away from her before it was necessary, before it was time to do that. We serve between 7,000 and 8,000 people all across the 5 boroughs of New York City. We also serve, we actually can serve anyone within the state of New York. It's kind of a New York mandate. We also serve, for the most intensive parts, we actually have to go to someone's home, which is another feature that is different from that our organization provides for people who need that service. We also serve the 2 counties on Long Island. We serve Westchester, Rockland, Orange counties, I think maybe even Dutchess County as well. So if there is a way that our trainers can come to that person and teach them the techniques, that we're going to do that. And again, the service is completely free. I usually start off very quickly. I'm fighting off a little something. I don't know what it is. I think there's a lot of something going around. I don't know. But I'm fighting off a little something. So I'm dry. I have my little water here. One of the things I start off, at one point, there was a bigger focus on talking about blindness, right? But culturally, a lot of us, of course, we don't want to be sick. We don't want to be blind. We don't want to, those are things that are really scary to us. And so people would say, oh, I'm not blind. I'm not blind. And they would have difficulty because they had lost so much vision. It's important to remember, that over 90% of people who are blind are legally blind, right? And we know that the law prescribes, it's kind of like we usually see, really in a spectrum. Most of us really think of, can we see, can we not see, like an on-off switch. Light is on, we can see, light is off, we can't see. That's not really what it's like. It's really a spectrum, where over here is excellent vision, like an eagle, and over here is total darkness, you can't see anything at all. And the vast majority of us are somewhere along this spectrum, And then over the course of a lifetime, you know, unfortunately, we use our bodies and our eyes and things like that. We tend to kind of go towards the towards the being able to see less. And so the law at a certain point says, at this point, you are legally blind. Okay, so the law says we're going to treat you as if you are blind. But over 90% of people who are blind and severely visually impaired actually still have some vision left. Okay, so the real metric to really kind of ophthalmologists, which is to say eye doctors, actually conduct some tests to kind of see where you are along that spectrum. So they can tell if somebody is particularly, legally blind if they meet that metric. But what is important to understand is that even the vast majority of us that fall into the category of being blind actually have some residual vision, even if sometimes it's the light or darkness, right? But most times it's a little more than that. And that is critical for an organization like ours that says, what is it that we can do that's going to help you? Is there a special light that's going to help you? Is there, if we make things bigger, is that going to help you? So that's critical for an organization like ours to say, even though you are severely visually impaired, there are tricks and techniques that we can teach you. There's a training that we can teach you so you can recover some of the things that you lost. Now, I'm gonna quickly go. I think everybody here, hopefully, some folks at home can still kind of follow along. But if you look at these kind of black simulators, I'm gonna quickly go through the 4 reasons why most people in the United States actually lose their vision. Sure, oh yeah, oh, please, please let me know. I kind of mixed up some Spanish ones, so somebody gets a Spanish or a Chinese one, then
Spanish is good.
Yeah, Spanish is good. We also have some Chinese ones here, but if you don't know Spanish or Chinese, you can get an English one as well. They have some English ones. So let's take it. Okay, all right. Take it. So that's okay. You totally mixed the Spanish and English one, so that's okay. Well, let me hang on to one while I kind of do the, okay. Spanish one. There we go.
Someone the block.
Okay. So does anybody know if we would say, what are the 4 eye diseases that take a lot of vision away from people? Does anybody know maybe one of them or ma'am? Ding, ding. Wow, pretty good. Okay. Hey, whoa, okay. That's the second one. Cataracts, glaucoma. Do we have macular degeneration? My goodness. Wow. I usually had a thing where if if the group together got them all, I would have to give out a prize. And I brought some prizes. So so if we get that last one.
Well, I can read all.
You can read it. Oh, okay, that's a cheating. All right. There we go. The last one is glaucoma. So those are the 4. Do we?
Glaucoma, somebody said.
Somebody ever said glaucoma?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm confusing people. I don't want to hand out the freebies. No, but you all did pretty good, and you can read. Yeah, I think I forgot that that's been handed out. Yeah, it's okay. Right. So I'm gonna go through the 4 main ones. The largest one in the United States, the one that is most common, there are millions of people. And it's important to remember that with all of these, the vast majority of people who actually have these diseases are not going to ever be severely visually impaired. Okay, so that's really important to know. So that even if you have something like this, there is a lot of hope. It doesn't mean that you will be a client of visions or your vision will get to that point. But they are serious diseases, and some people within these groups of people who have it do lose a lot of vision. The most common one in the United States is macular degeneration. Maculus is a small group of cells on the back of the eye. It's part of a larger structure called the retina. What's important is that it's responsible for 2 things. Your central vision and something they call acuity, which is how clear or blurry something is. And so when the maculus starts to not work as well, those are the two things that typically happen. You lose your vision through the center, okay, the central vision. You very often retain your vision from the sides, which is called peripheral vision, okay? So that's one of the reasons why, and then things get blurry. So as it progresses, those are the things that happen. You know, typically if you see someone, and you know, I realized that my grandmother had this, we didn't know about this, you know, back then, and it wasn't that long ago, probably about maybe 15 years ago. But we didn't know how to get the help. Typically somebody would say, if somebody's right in front of you, they would say, hello, how are you doing? My name is Mark, right? Because they're using their peripheral vision. They're using the side vision, which they don't have, and not using the central vision, which they don't have. In the beginning, it kind of, you know, people usually say that it seems like the words are jumping on a page. Of course, the words are not jumping, right? It's just your ability to see them has changed. And so it typically kind of looks like, if we could look on our simulators, the first one up at the top. And there are about 3 million Americans who have macular degeneration, the number one leading cause of visual impairment in the United States. Most people are living with them successfully in terms of their independence, meaning it's not taking away their ability to function independently and do the things that, you know, grown folks and adults do, right? There are some new treatments. So even, you know, I've been at Visions for a couple of years. Some of these treatments have become much more popularized. There's the shot. There are different things that they can do to kind of, there is no cure, so it doesn't go away. But with some of the treatments they're finding now, there is new hope. In, you know, a certain percentage of people, it stops the macular degeneration from getting worse, which is what we're usually trying to do. In many cases, once you've lost some vision, it's very difficult, except in a few cases, to actually get it back. So really the name of the game is preventing it from getting worse, preventing it from progressing. That's what we don't want, and that's what everything. And so one of the things that's most important is actually, you know, for macular degeneration, they're finding out new things. You know, in the past, we used to think that, oh, this is just something that happens. And now people are much more like, no, this is a regular disease like anything else. Just because it tends to happen to us as we get older, doesn't mean it's not a disease. We can just, you know, do research and development and find new things and find new treatments. But even still, there are a lot of things we don't know about it. We know that if you have trauma to the eye, like if you're an ex-boxer or something like that, what we know is that it tends to happen easier if folks have lighter eyes, because there's a lot of damage, and it's cumulative damage that we think, from the sun, actually. So the sun kind of reflects, but you know, something with over 3 million Americans having it, it happens with people with all color eyes, right? But you know, almost every day that we can see, you know, good sunlight, we actually are supposed to be wearing shades, you know, eyeglasses that kind of, you know, shade our eyes to protect the macula, and to protect our eyes. And this damage is usually over decades, right? You know, if you go out and go to the beach with no sunglasses, you're gonna be fine. But over time, there is damage that kind of catches up to us as we get a little older. They say that it becomes more prominent over the age of 40. I don't know if we know anybody over the age of 40. But if we know somebody who's over the age of 40, we should warn them that, you know, that some of these things unfortunately become more prominent as we get older. The second one that I'm going to talk about is glaucoma. Okay, glaucoma. Okay, I got the English one. Okay, glaucoma. So glaucoma is the one that we call the sneak thief of sight. And the reason why we call it the sneak thief of sight is primarily for two reasons. Number one, it can actually change very rapidly. So if I had glaucoma as I stand here 1 year from today, if I had glaucoma and did not know it, and didn't do anything about it, I could have lost a good deal of vision. And the second thing is what I've hinted is that a lot of people don't know that they have it. And the reason why they don't know what they have it is that In the most common form of glaucoma, open angle glaucoma, it's usually associated with no pain. So you don't know, pain, that sounds like a good thing, it kind of is, but pain is also a warning sign like, ouch, my eye hurts, something's going wrong. But if you don't feel any pain, glaucoma can progress and we're not aware that there are important changes in our eye. And this is one called the sneak thief of sight because people find out very late. If you find out early, and this is the one that really, again, over the age, this one is really for everyone every year, you have to have an ophthalmologic exam. That's the one where it's gonna take usually about an hour. They're gonna run different tests. Your eyes are gonna be, at the end of it, they usually dilate your pupils, and that actually causes you some difficulty seeing for a little bit. Sometimes, depending on the machines they use, they blow a puff of air into your eye. Sometimes they press a small device up against your eyeball. They say, look in the corner, and they flash a blue light, right? So they're checking the health of your eyeball, of your eyes, very good. And the reason why that's important is that you can go to an eye examination and they'll say, cover this eye, cover that eye. That is better than doing nothing, but that tells you how your eyes are right now. The ophthalmologic exam is really key in terms of seeing if any of these diseases are sneaking up on you. Okay, so they haven't affected your vision yet, but you can see some changes in your body and in your eyes to say this is something that, and we want to find out as early as possible that we have these conditions because that gives us the most options. My father was, he used to work for the unions, and so he always had healthcare. He never went to the doctor. And I used to say, Pops, how come you don't go to the doctor? And he used to say, every time I go to the doctor, he tells me I got something else. Right. So if he stays home, he's not gonna have anything. They're not gonna give him anything. And we know that that's not true with your vision. You want to find out as early as possible if there are eye changes and things that you can do. So for instance, even with the sneak thief of sight glaucoma, the most common treatment that they're going to give you usually are eye drops. Okay, so there are, and if we know people who have had glaucoma, they're always talking about the pressure in their eye. There is fluid that comes in our eye that serves a lot of different purposes. It comes in. What happens is that it doesn't drain properly out of our eye. And so almost like a basin in the street that is kind of clogged up. If it's clogged up and it begins to rain, water has nowhere to go and there's like a lake. Although with the hills here, maybe that doesn't happen as much. It just flows down to the other part of the Bronx. Maybe I don't know what's going on, but you know what I mean. You've gone to the corner and there's a lake there because the basin it doesn't drain properly. And that's very similar to what happens in the most common form of glaucoma. So the fluid has nowhere to go. It builds up in our eye, something called intraocular pressure, which is basically the pressure in our eye. It builds up. And there are 12 different named kinds of glaucoma. Okay, so there are different differentiations within all those 12. The one thing that they all have in common is damage to the optic nerve. That is what glaucoma is. Okay, so to be able to see, we actually need 3 functioning components. We need the eye, which is like a camera. We need the optic nerve, which is like the old game of telephone, okay, running to our brain, which is the processing unit. There are changes that can happen in our brain. At some point we had some people who had come from some of the wars or, people who've had a traumatic brain injury, they've hit their head very hard, and they've lost vision that way. There's nothing wrong with their eyes per se, right? So all 3 of those pieces have to work, the eye, the optic nerve, and the brain. And glaucoma attacks the optic nerve. And in this case, open angle glaucoma, the pressure pinches down and causes damage to the optic nerve, and that's what happens. Like I said, the good thing about it is that if we catch it early, very often, they're going to give you eye drops, right? So you put them in sometimes twice a day, 4 times, sometimes even 8 times a day. All of it is better than losing your vision, right? So the game is maintaining our vision. The third one that I would like to talk about is cataracts that somebody mentioned. And cataracts, essentially is the clouding of the lens of our eye. If I didn't actually have my glasses on, I wouldn't be able to see great, but what I would normally do is put contact lenses on. right? And so if we have contact lenses, we know those are thin slips of plastic that we place on top of our eye that kind of do the work of correcting the vision that, that usually glasses do. So with cataracts, if I were given this talk in the 1950s or 60s, that would have been the number one reason why somebody's losing their vision. But the good thing is that, what has become much more standardized is kind of a procedure. I wouldn't even call it a surgery. It's a light procedure called cataracts replacement surgery, where instead of putting the plastic slips on top of our eye, they make a very small incision. There's a little tug that you feel, and we take out the lens of our eye and you put in a plastic lens. So it's almost like having a contact lens inside of your eye doing the work of the lens, which has become cloudy. And so that has a success rate, it's considered to have a success rate of over 99%. There are still about 5%, 5 to 7% of people who are not good candidates for the surgery or choose to not do the surgery, the procedure really. And those people will continue to usually have a clouding of the lens of the eye. One of the things that's interesting is the last time I went to the ophthalmologist, she told me that I had a cataracts growing in this eye, not this one. So it's a very strange kind of, thing. It can grow in one and not the other. Typically, they grow in both. It could progress and get worse and then all of a sudden stop. So what they usually do, they could tell you that you have a cataracts growing, but it's not ripe. It's not ready to come out. It's not going to cause you that clouding. And for some people, it never does. And, it has no other ill effects on our body. So basically, you can have a cataracts, and if it doesn't take away or cloud up your vision, they just leave it alone. But for some people, for a lot of people, we're gonna get some cloudiness. I'm expecting at some point in the future, for me to have more difficulty seeing out of this eye, it'll get cloudy, and then it'll become ripe. It'll be time to kind of take it out and put that plastic lens in there and, be part of the 99% success rate with that. So that is cataracts, and because of that, that is the one common disease that you can recover a lot of your vision. The last one that I want to talk about is the one that we see growing in leaps and bounds in the community, unfortunately, and that is diabetic retinopathy. And diabetic retinopathy is the one where we commonly see people in their 30s who have lost a lot of their vision. It is terrible. It is, diabetes can be a very bad disease, which we know. But again, in many ways, diabetes is, in many instances for most people, it is really a warning sign. It says, take care of your health and do the things you need to do before these problems get worse and take a toll and bring down your health. So having diabetes, whatever you think about our mayor, I used to see him when he was the Brooklyn Borough president, and I was there during the time he found out that he had diabetes. He is far healthier now, even though he's like 10 years older. He's lost weight. He really took care of his health in a way that said, I'm gonna really meet this, this challenge to take care of my health and do the things that I'm supposed to do. So he still has diabetes, but he's much healthier, and he doesn't have, in many instances, and I don't want to make it completely, environmental and putting it on people, but in many instances, the people who have a lot of trouble with diabetes are the people who have difficulty making the changes. Slowing up on the alcohol, slowing up on some of the fried foods, not getting the walks the way they should, not taking the medication that the doctor gives you as prescribed. And if we usually follow those steps, we're going to have the best outcomes possible. And there are many people who have diabetes who don't appear to be unhealthy. And that's what we're really looking for. There are some people, unfortunately, close to 20% of people at some point, because of diabetes, if they have it, are going to lose a lot of their vision. So, it is a tough disease. And there are a lot of people at some point along that line that lose a lot of vision. But a lot of it, I really want to make clear that a lot of it is in our hands. A lot of it is saying that we have these things that are wrong with us, and there are no cures yet, okay? And maybe one day there will be, but right now we don't have any cures. But that doesn't mean, that the game is over. That doesn't mean, there are adjustments that we can make, there are adjustments that we can make to preserve the vision that we have. And so, there are a lot of different things, wearing sunglasses, getting your walks, going to the doctor as soon as possible if there is a radical change in your vision, right? So there are a lot of different things that we can do to preserve our vision. The most important, changing our diet, right? I never tell people if I like to eat a lot. I'm sure you know this. But I never tell anybody, don't eat, I like fried chicken, I'm never gonna not eat fried chicken, right? But I'm not gonna do it every day, right? It's gonna be a little bit more of a treat. So I never tell people not to do the things that they love, but just to know that if there's something sweet or something fried, you make it more of a treat rather than an everyday thing. Because that's really gonna help you with your health. And then the most important thing that we can do to preserve our vision as we age is go and get an ophthalmologic exam every year. And I know that during COVID, that was very difficult, right? We were told to stay away from people and have a mask and do all this kind of stuff. And, that was the good stuff then. But now, things have opened up. It's very important, for all of us, particularly with this one over the age of 35. I know some of us have older friends over the age of 35. If we do, it is important to let them know that they have to have their eyes, we all have to get our eyes checked once a year and have the ophthalmologic exam. There's a lot of troubles living in New York City, right? But there's some advantages as well. We could be in a place where there's one hospital with one ophthalmologist 2 counties away, and I got to drive 2 hours to get to. There are places in America that are like that. In New York, that's not the case. We do have wonderful options, different hospitals. What I would say if you're facing a procedure, is what I would say for your eyes or really for anything, get a second opinion. Some of these things, they're borderline calls and things that what you want is never leave your doctor that you're happy with. But go and get that second opinion that one time before you do something major, because you're going to want the new person who doesn't know you to say the same thing, the same course of treatment that the first doctor told you, and then pretty much that's the way to go. But if they say different things, you're like, wait a minute, I need to figure out more what the right course of doing it is. And I know doctors are like an assembly line, even with eye doctors. What I tell people all the time, I tell this to my mom, I do it myself. I come with notes. I come with little notes because so many times, we're on the bus going home and like, oh, I wanted to say this. I wanted to let the doctor know this. And, okay, now I got to see them next year, right? So come in with your questions and, have them address everything. They want to get you out of there, but you want to get out of there as well. But you want to get out of there with all of your questions answered and how to go forward and be as healthy in your life as well as your eyes that you can. One of the things that happens to people who lose a lot of vision is there's a couple of things. Number one, over 90% fall into depression, right? But when over 90% of people do something, that's something that's very normal. Okay, that's something that, what's really strange is the people who would lose a lot of vision and have no depression at all. That's a little strange. So it is normal to fall into depression. What's not okay is to stay there. You got to fight your way back. And Visions has been an organization that's been there for 98 years, proving that people can gain back a lot of the things that they've lost. We cannot give you your vision back yet. But we can give you something that is very important in your life, which is your independence. Visions has over, and maybe I'm stepping on my supervisor's toes here, but we have over 120 different programs and services, and it's services for people who are young, working age people, for seniors as well. Many of these things tend to happen as we get older. They're all geared towards the same thing, is maintaining the independence of that person. Even though you lost your vision, we had a governor, okay, of the state of New York that was blind, legally blind. He was David Patterson. And, I had moved to Harlem, so he was my state senator for a while. So, and he was a big example, right? He's somebody who signed his bills, he played basketball, he tried to run a marathon. he was an example of somebody that is legally blind, cannot see very well, and he still does not let that, stop him from being independent and participating in life to the fullest of his extent. And that's what we want to do. There are a lot of ways and things. We brought a bunch of, one of the things that we do, if you know somebody who's lost a lot of vision, the other thing that they do is they make adaptations, right? But their adaptation usually is to not go outside, is to kind of be isolated. What do they call them? A shut-in or something like that. They don't go outside anymore because they don't feel comfortable. They don't feel safe doing it, right? So their adaptation is to sit on the couch and, maybe listen to TV or something like that, right? For us, that is a maladaptation. And really a lot of the training that we do, and Kathleen, I know, is going to talk about, the training that we provide, which is very unique. Okay, you don't come to us. We have what I call a mailbox at, I don't know, it's around the Soho area of Manhattan. I don't even know, it's around there, 500 Greenwich Street. I call that the mailbox because the real work is done within the person's home. Okay, so they work out of time to say, first thing we do, if you know somebody who needs some of the help and you want to make a referral, you have at the bottom of our, you have phone numbers you can call. You've got a different phone number here, but they both get to us. You can go on our website if you want to check it out. That's on here as well. It's visionsvcb.org. And if you forget, and you run into someone in church or synagogue 6 months later, and you forget this talk, and you say, I remember that bald-headed guy who came and he was talking all that good stuff about, vision and stuff like that and how to help people. How do I get in touch with them? You know that I've come here. So the center director, Margie, knows how to get in touch with us, to make any referral, even if you have questions about things that are going wrong with your eye. We're a very good resource. You can call us up. We'll do our best. We, like Kathleen mentioned, we don't dispense medical advice, right? So the number one thing that you do if you have problems with your vision is you do not call us. You go to the eye doctor, right? That's the normal course. But if that eye doctor has done whatever they can for that person, and that person has to live with low vision, then that's when an organization like Visions helps. We do it completely for free. And we've been here for 98 years, proving that even though you cannot see, you don't have to give up your independence. So I know Kathleen can talk about some of the things that means for people. And since you all got it right, I also have to give them the attitudes, but Kathleen is also, we got her.
So as Mark said, we provide services in people's homes. We also have started over the last year to do services in a group style, where people come to our older adult center in Manhattan, and we do the services in over 6 weeks. We meet with people and work on the different skills that they need to work on. And then we do the follow-up in the home. And one of the things for people that have vision loss is that sometimes they feel isolated. They don't know anybody else that's blind or visually impaired. Like Mark talked about macular degeneration. It's very common. When I go out to see people, they'll be like, I can't see my neighbor across the street. They wave at me. I don't know who they are anymore. They think I'm a snob, because you lose that central vision. And we talk about that. Everybody that has macular degeneration in an advanced stage like that, they have that same thing. They can't recognize people that they used to wave hello to. So it's a way for people to come together and to learn different skills. So one of the things that happens is sometimes when you start to have vision loss, you might not be able to read the labels on your medicine bottles. You might not be able to write a check. You might not be able to see the flame on your stove. So what do? Well, people do figure out ways, but there are people like myself that are called vision rehabilitation therapists. That's our staff that come and have different techniques, different pieces of equipment that we provide for you so that you are able to do these things independently. We show you how to do them. Threading a needle. That's really hard, right? We have a little gadget that, every time I teach it, everybody tries to look. I say, close your eyes, you'll be able to thread a needle. And bam, they can thread a needle. Then we have little templates that sit over the check. We have little dots to put on your microwave. Sometimes you can't find the start button. Sometimes you're afraid to cut food. You don't want to cut yourself. We have techniques that we can show you how to do that. Then there's the other issue of people are afraid maybe or anxious about going outside. Maybe you're not seeing the cracks in the sidewalk. Maybe you're having difficulty stepping off the curb. If you have vision loss in one eye and it's severe, you have issues with depth perception, so steps become an issue. Maybe you can't see the numbers in the elevator anymore, or you're nervous about crossing the street. On a sunny day, you can't see that, the little cross, the little guy telling you to cross, not cross. So we have people that are called orientation and mobility specialists, and they come out and work with you on how to do all of these things safely. And it might be, oh, you're nervous about going downstairs. Maybe you have your laundry's downstairs, but it's really dark down there. And there's a step and you keep missing the step. So they would come. I know a lot of people associate people who are blind and visually impaired with the long white cane. Not everybody gets a cane. Sometimes you have to learn to use your vision. So if you have macular degeneration and you're trying to look at the light straight on, you can't see it. So you have to learn to look at it from the side. Or you can use the traffic, or you can use your hearing if your hearing's good enough. So they come out and work with you. We also work with low vision optometrists. They are not ophthalmologists. The optometrist is exclusive to finding devices that can help you either with distance vision or with near vision. And a lot of times it's near vision. Being able to read. People want glasses. There's not always glasses that fix the problem. There's magnifiers, there's different electronic devices that you can use. We also do a lot of training with people on smartphones. People can't see them. And everybody uses them now since COVID, right? So if you can't see it, what do? Well, there's magnification. That's the easiest. But there's also, if your vision becomes more severe, there's something called, well, I'm gonna talk about the iPhone. Anyone has an Android, don't be mad, but they're harder. It's called VoiceOver, and it's a whole different way of learning how to use your phone. Your phone will speak everything, but you have to learn how to turn it on, how to tap. Sometimes it's simple. I have this lovely lady who's 100 years old. She comes up, she lives in Florida in the winter, comes up, and I went to her and she wanted to be able to send a text message. And I said, she can't see the thing to type it out. And I said, oh, you can use Siri to send a text message. She's like, really? So now she's texting everybody. Simple things like that. I mean, it's not, using a dark pen, printing instead of writing in cursive. It's fast, it's quick. We're all used to, everybody knows cursive here, right? It's not like the new generation that nobody knows cursive, right? But it's always easier to read print. We have large print calendars. We have large print pill boxes. There are, yeah, we.
So here on the side here.
Oh, okay. There's even fancier stuff for identifying medicine. You can even go to the drugstore. They're getting very sophisticated. You can ask for larger print labels. I think CVS might have it. There's apps on the phone that can help you read. I think on the new iPhone, the latest update, if you take a picture, it will read the information. You don't even have to use an app. That's how fancy because of AI. There's color identifiers for people. Color sometimes becomes an issue. Reading things in the supermarket, there's different things. And we talk about different things like that. So you go to your supermarket, right? You can't find anything. What do? Well, you could shop online, but you like to go to the store. So my mother is legally blind, and that lady goes to the store a lot. She still thinks she's shopping for 5 children that don't live there anymore. But when she goes, she's familiar with the store, but every once in a while they change the layout. She will go in customer service and ask, say, you know what, this is my list. She doesn't go when it's crazy, and then and they will walk around with her and help her find the items in the store. So things like that. That's why, coming together, whether it's having someone come to your home or coming together as a group, because you learn from each other. It's always fascinating to me when I have a group and it's like 6 people and I'm like, how is this gonna work? And by lunch, everybody's chatting away, coming up with different systems, because some of the things that we teach, obviously, safety about crossing the street, using public transportation. That's really, you do it the way you have to do it, you don't wanna, but there's other ways to do things in the home. People have systems about their medicine, they take one of those dark pens and they put a letter on top. After they take their medicine, I've seen people, they turn it upside down. Or they keep their morning medicine in the kitchen and their nighttime medicine in the bedroom. I mean, so people talk about that. They use rubber bands. They've come up with different systems. I had somebody that, when they went food shopping, they bought only certain vegetables, like in my house would only be peas and corn. So you'd have one side with the peas, one side with the corn. So there's different techniques, there's different devices, and as Mark said, anything that we recommend to you, we buy for you, free. So a very hot item is air fryers. That way people don't have to use the top of the stove, people are afraid of the flame, people are afraid of the oven sometimes. Air fryers, it's just so easy, there's less chance of being burned. We must give them out all the time. And we help mark them, some of them have a dial, some people want the ones that, you can push the button, it just depends on every person. So we make it really to what the person needs. We also, depending on people's needs, sometimes we give talking blood pressure cuffs, talking scales. People that have diabetes and heart issues, sometimes you have to monitor that, you can't see the scale anymore. So there's talking scales, you name it, and we are able to find it or provide it. We also have on staff an occupational therapist that will come out if somebody has issues like with balance, or they're having difficulty. Their balance, the white cane's not gonna be enough, so they might have to use a rollator. How do you navigate a rollator when you have low vision? So they would come out and make a recommendation. Sometimes I'll go out and see somebody and there is a balance issue. Sometimes it's related to vision, because when you're not seeing well, you kind of look like, you look it down, and sometimes it's something else going on and they don't know. So we do have that extra, that we have the occupational therapist. Anything that you can think of that we are able to assist with. There's also other resources. There's, I say it like, oh, it's not anymore, but it's books on tape, but it's, the Andrew Hessel Library for the Blind, and they have, audio books. I know everybody uses audiobooks, so it's not, in the old days, it was, people would be really excited about that, but now everybody does audiobooks, so, and there's different ways to do it. Sure.
Okay, so, I just wanna check online, does anyone online have a question? You can unmute yourself and let us know. Can I count to 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, no question. Any question in the audience? Yes?
Okay.
Go ahead.
For cataracts, I was told when I didn't get my pair of glasses, that the ophthalmologist said that despite the fact that I have cataracts, I have 20/20 vision, which he sort of strange.
Well, that sounds strange in a good way.
That's
No, but what we mentioned before is that cataracts is a very strange disease. You really just watch it. It has no ill effects on our body other than taking away and clouding up our vision.
Okay.
So if we don't have that clouding of the vision, like for me, I have a cataract growing in one eye, not the other, but I have no clouding yet. Typically, as it progresses, I may have that or I will have that, those are the odds, but it could be that I never have it. So I never have it, nothing else wrong with my vision, nothing else wrong with your vision, so it's just something at this point really to watch.
Right.
But it could be that you never have to have that procedure. And if you don't, then they won't, they're not gonna do anything.
And
that's
no
necessary.
And no 2 people, there could be 2 people here that have macular degeneration. You may see totally different. I've gone to people that have macular degeneration and they can find a dime on the floor, and the next person, their visual functioning is much less. So it's like anything else. nobody's the same, everybody's different. It's just the eye disease, and then everybody sees, able to use their vision differently.
Right, and so that's why a lot of the programs that we have, it really at a certain point becomes very individualized. Right. So for instance, we're gonna use the things that, if a special light can help you, we're gonna give you that. As you can see here that we've handed out, Braille is a tactile language, which is basically, it's using another sense that you have, your sense of touch. And everybody says, oh, I can't learn Braille, and everybody can. It's, it's interesting because we take in so much information through our senses, but we favor information through our eyes. But so when they take away, if you don't have vision and visual information through your eyes, you start paying attention a lot more to your other senses,
One,
and so you can do it.
What's
yeah,
Yes,
I just want to give,
next question.
also, somebody asked for the email address on how to reach you. We're gonna send that to everybody after the session. I'm gonna say your name, I think incorrectly, Arita, do you have a question?
Right.
Please make sure, Barbara, everyone is muted,
Okay,
okay? Arita, you have to unmute yourself if you have a question. I see a lot of thumbs going around, but no
I
question.
think, Rita, if you can't unmute, you could put it in the chat and I can read it for you.
Well, while,
And I
Okay.
just wanna say about Braille and the long cane, I know people associate those things with blindness. And it is, those are, we don't prescribe them for everybody, it's individualized, we give recommendations, obviously, you don't have to do what we say. Braille is something that, was outdated and people thought wasn't important, but it is. But we don't force it on people, and again, with the long cane. People that use Braille, sometimes they just learn the alphabet so that they can figure out the numbers on an elevator. The numbers and the letters are the same, it's a complicated, it's not that hard, but. So basic little simple things, so everything is, this is what I would recommend for you, if you say that's not for me, then that's okay.
yeah,
Let
and
me,
it's,
let me take another question from the audience, and then somebody put a question in the chat. And we'll deal with that. Go ahead.
So I have 3 relatives who have macular degeneration, my mom and my 2 brothers. So I wanted to know how common it is. Is it heredity, or is it just such a common issue that people over a certain age are going?
it's both,
Both.
as best as we can find, right? So there are things like I was mentioning about not protecting your eyes from the sun and things like that, and that is gonna wear away at the maculas. And then there are some things that we think have some hereditary components as well, if your family has had it, and that's with kind of all of the diseases that I spoke about.
Glaucoma and macular degeneration in particular, yeah.
Then the one that I didn't speak about, retinitis pigmentosa, the reason why I didn't speak about that is because that one is for the most part completely hereditary.
What about something called Fuchs dystrophy? Somebody just put that in saying you didn't mention Fuchs dystrophy?
No, so we mentioned the top 4.
Yeah, we can do everything, yeah.
Okay.
There are actually, the top
There's
4,
lots more.
there are like hundreds more of things that can go wrong. So that's just kind of like a smaller population that has.
And you don't have to have one of these eye diseases for us to, people have other things.
For sure.
It's about the amount of usable vision that you have and how you're functioning. So we do serve people that are not legally blind. Because sometimes you have severe visual impairment and that's impacting your daily life. So the easiest thing to do to make a referral to us is, if you're interested, we have our intake department contact you, they reach out to your eye doctor, and then we start the services. We don't usually turn anyone away.
Any other questions in the audience? Go ahead, Claire.
I understand there's a big difference between dry and wet macular.
Yes,
And my understanding is that dry is not as bad,
correct,
but they can't do anything.
correct.
Can you just repeat it?
It's a little worse, but you can get the shot in.
Right, so she was asking about the difference between dry and wet macular degeneration, and that 90% of people have wet macular degeneration, and that's when you have a bleed, and they treat it with a laser. That's why you get the little spots, but there's treatments for it, but dry macular degeneration is about 10%, and there's no treatment for that at this time. but it's not as progressive. And it's not as, but you can go from dry to wet sometimes,
Yeah.
but not, you know,
But you could get wet without drying.
correct. Yes,
And I'm sorry, second. You know about the app on the iPhone called CAI?
yes, look at you.
Can you repeat the scenario?
So she's talking about the app.
My friend.
Seeing AI, which has many features, it can identify money, color, read documents. And it has an AI feature now, which is, it would take a picture of this room and it would say, there's a room full of. It's getting really advanced, like 20 people, it really gives a lot of information, so for people like that are waiting for an Uber, you can have it. There's even something where you can call somebody, there's a Be My Eyes. And you get a live person, so if you're standing outside and you can't find something, you don't use them to cross the street, but if you need to find a store, or you're looking for an Uber, or you have to read something, maybe you need a recipe read, or you have is this chocolate cake or brownies? They're on there and they help you. There's a paid version of it, but the free version works fine.
So, yeah, I mean,
And
it is
all
exciting.
those apps are on the Android, just
Yeah,
FYI.
they are, they're on
It's-
Android.
Funny
You know.
thing is it takes a picture of the whole page of the book.
Yep.
And it shows you the picture, which is impossible. But then you push a button.
I never read it.
It takes it to you.
Well, also just remember that at the base of all of it, there are a lot of new, there are a lot of new gadgets now, that this is kind of a wonderful time for a lot of new things that can help us adapt for people who can't see as well as they used to. But at the base, it's really doing the same thing that the old school stuff did. It's basically translating something that you can't do into something that you can, right? So, whatever AI is doing, in the end, it's talking to you, right? So it's using your sense of hearing.
Pronunciation.
There's
And we
some
do-
bugs in it as well, but but in the end, it's really just saying, we're gonna use your other senses. We're gonna give this to you in a form that you can understand
Right.
it. There are some old school things, right, that AI can't do, right? It can't put your pillbox, right? But if this is gonna be helpful to you, it's a lot bigger, right? You don't confuse the Sundays with the Tuesday medication. For folks who don't have the fancy, they have the old phones. When I show this,
There's a couple.
I brought
Make
this
sure they
for.
see it.
I brought this to like a school and they did not know what this was. If making things bigger is gonna help you, if talking to you using your sense of hearing is gonna help you, if you can learn Braille and use your sense of touch, and that's gonna help you. Whatever it is to say, you can't do it the way you used to, but here is an adaptation to that. There are things that, these are talking alarm clocks, so you can just kind of press a button and it tells you what time it is. It does it in Spanish and Chinese as well.
We also give a lot of people Alexa. Because you can use it as a timer, as a clock for weather. You can use it to read a book now, to listen to a book. You can listen to the news. It has reminders, so it also can dial numbers. So for some people that really, they can't dial the phone, the smartphone doesn't work, and they need just basic phone numbers, it works, so.
I just tell Alexa, call Melissa.
Right.
There you go.
And there's metrics with that say we call the same 5 people
Right.
most of
Alexa,
the time.
Alexa also has a new feature where for I think it's $35 a year, you can say if you have an emergency
Right.
and they'll contact people.
So people don't have to wear the
Yes.
life alert, which no one wants to wear, right?
So it's only good in the house, but we certainly
Well,
push
you
Alexa
have to
here.
be
You have to be in,
with the hearing.
Right.
you have to be in your house. Anything else from anyone?
Question.
From me or for him? So,
Oh, because I never had problems with my reading. Once I got diabetes, I was sick. No matter how many times I went and got glasses, I still can't. So it's been over 40 years. I'm still, right now, just came from Massachusetts, from California over here, because my daughter was willing to help me to try to get services, which I haven't gotten yet. But it's very hard to do so. It's very hard, you try to be, I go to church and I have a Bible, but I can't see it. So it's a sense of carrying a Bible, but I can't read it.
what's the question that you think they could be helpful with?
What would be the best way for me to be able to go into a place where they will help me to get glasses and get the service again, that I haven't got this all the years.
Can you repeat her question?
Where is the best place for her to go to get services that she hasn't been able to get for so many years? I would suggest you give me a call, and I might be able to help you.
It's me and Frank.
Okay.
Anything from anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
The eye floaters, you even mentioned it here, are they connected to these 4 diseases, or is that a separate thing, each with the eyes? Or-
So if you see
Well,
floaters,
things
I
that
mean,
line-
sometimes people have floaters as you get older,
Yeah,
but if you see them and it's a lot, you should go get checked. There's no harm in getting checked. It could be a sign of macular or diabetes, but if you're seeing them and it's impacting your vision, you really should go get it checked. And as we age, over
Yeah.
50, you could start to have it. It changes how you read, you have to hold things far away when you turn 40, and so there's no harm in having it checked. It could be just natural aging, or it could be a sign of something.
Remember, almost all of us actually have floaters and a lot of them are just imperfections very often. We don't notice we have it because it's been there so long, usually, maybe actually a nice bright white room like this. We begin to notice that we have them even, and normally when, it's not so, you don't have that contrast, we don't even notice it. They usually say that, it becomes concerning if those floaters if they change, if they become bigger, more numerous. If there's a
sagging lines, I've seen both.
so since everybody's gonna go to the ophthalmologist once a year, that would be one of our questions that we would ask, right? So they specifically can look into what your eyes are like. Usually, if you can still function and see, and it hasn't changed, it hasn't gotten worse, they haven't gotten bigger, there are not more of them. Usually that's something there's not much they can do about it and it doesn't impact.
I mean, my
It's
advice
not-
would be as someone who's had cataract surgery, who has macular degeneration in my family. If something bothers you, I'd go have a check.
Yep.
If you think it's
Yep.
weird and you
Go
are
have a check.
uncomfortable, go get a
Yep.
check.
That's one of the good things
There's
about
no
New York
harm.
City that we can do.
Yeah.
for sure.
Yep.
Is it ever too late to get the cataract surgery? Like if you're told that it's time to get it and you put it off a couple of years, is that wrong?
I'm not a doctor.
Yeah,
I don't know. That would be up to you
Yeah,
and your
Generally
doctor.
speaking, yeah, they monitor it, for the most part, the people who are not good candidates for the surgery are people who, for the most part, have really uncontrolled hypertension, people who have, uncontrolled diabetes. Those are the biggest categories. And then there's a third category of people who just don't want to do it.
And then
We do have people who, are great candidates for the replacement and just don't want to do it.
And usually, there's also a conversation that you might end up having with your eye doctor where she sort of says, I think it's time. We've tried to change your glasses 9 times and you're still saying it bothers you, it's time. And then that's up to you as to whether or not you want to do it. But we're not doctors.
Right.
And we don't pretend to be.
Any other questions?
Anything else from anybody? This has been very helpful. We would love you to come back again and do more with
Thank you so much. I promised a little.
Thank you. We're gonna hang
a
up
little
people online
handout.
and we'll send you their contact
Handout,
information.
nice, we're gonna say